So it's the same spirits that's going on. That's why you can see the same thing happening. Constant persecution. Go ahead, brother.
Before we go any further, we did research, and Abraham, for those who don't know, Abraham is a black man.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Hey, you know what's crazy? Hey, you know what's crazy? Nimrod, he's gonna throw him in the furnace, a black man. Yeah. See what I'm saying? Now we getting down to the spirit that's on me and now. Past the skin color, yeah, of course, Abraham was man, of course. Easy research to point that out. You feel me? But if we just stipulate on color, why is his own people about to throw him in the furnace? Why is daddy rat him out?
Wow, that's the spirit.
Let's get it, brother.
Verse 9. And when Abraham was come, the conjurers of the kings and the sages saw Abraham, and they cried out to the king, saying, Our sovereign Lord, surely this is the man who we know to have been the child at whose birth the great star swallowed up the four stars, which we declared to the king now 50 years since.
So the wise men and counties who was there when he was born looked at him in the spirit, knew that's old boy. He's over that thing. So now the daddy that ran him out, now he got an answer to the king. Right. So we wouldn't even be at this point had you killed him. Wow. Come on, bro.
Verse 10.
Yeah.
And our father had also transgressed thy commandments, and mocked thee by bringing thee another child, which thou didst kill. And when the king heard their words, he was exceedingly wroth, and he ordered Terah to be brought before him.
Don't lose focus. Terah, father Abraham, is the captain of Nimrod's army. See? Get him on over here. Come on.
Verse 12. And when the king said, Have thou heard what the conjurers have spoken? Now tell me truly, how did you, and if you shall speak the truth, you shall be acquitted. And seeing that the king's anger was so much kindled, Terah said to the king, My lord and king, thou hast heard the truth, and what the sages have spoken is right. And the king said, How could thou do this thing, to transgress my orders, and to give me a child that thou didst not begot, and to take value for him? And Terah answered the king, Because my tender feelings were excited for my son. At the time I took a son of my handmaid, and I brought him to the king. And the king said, Who advised thee to do this? Tell me, do not hide aught from me, and then thou shalt not die. And Terah was greatly terrified in the king's presence. And he said to the king, It was Haran. And also, look at what's going on here. Here is that this man, Terah, served all these different gods, but was afraid in the king's presence. But here it is, Abraham, who served the one true God. You know, he needs to budge at the king. You know, he told him straight up.
He do. So now, the daddy free case the oldest son. Well, my oldest son, this is Abraham's daddy. I'm trying to get that in y'all mind. Trip off what's happening. If you think family won't sell you out for belief, look at this.
This don't sound like 48 hours, the first 48 This is a nigga moment. They said on the moon dots. It's a nigga moment right here.
Come on, let's finish reading. Let's get it.
Verse 16 again. And Terah was greatly terrified in the king's presence, and he said to the king, It was Haran, my eldest son, who advised me to do this. And Haran was in those days that Abraham was born, 32 years old.
See, so Haran, Lot and Sarah daddy is 32 years older than Abraham. So his father said, he was my oldest boy. He's the one that advised me to do that. So what's going to happen to him? Let's get it.
Verse 17. Well, Haran did not advise his father to do anything.
See?
For Terah said this to the king in order to deliver his soul from the king. For he feared greatly. And the king said to Terah, Haran thy son who advised thee to do this, to this shall die through fire with Abraham. For the sentence of death is upon him for having rebelled against the king's desire to do, in doing this thing. Verse 18. And Haran at the time felt inclined to follow the ways of Abraham, but he kept it within himself.
See, I'm down with Abraham talking, but he kept it to himself. He wasn't full-fledged. Like, he wasn't fully persuaded. Right? He just kind of kept it to himself. Like some of our people will be like, I hear what you're saying, but you feel me? I'm still, because everybody pointing at you, I'm still going to stay on over here, but I hear you. Right? That's how he broke
good points.
Yeah, come on, brother.
Verse 19. And Haran said in his heart, oh my, behold, now the king has seized Abraham on account of these things which Abraham did. And it shall come to pass that if Abraham prevail over the king, I will follow him. But if the king prevail, I will go after the king.
So he's fence driving. He's not fully persuaded. I'm down with whoever wins. That's what he's saying.
He being lukewarm.
Yeah. And like Christ said in Revelation 3:16, he'll spew you out of his mouth. Lukewarm. You feel me? So this is what this brother's going through. He's lukewarm. He really don't believe. Alright, come on, brother.
Verse 20. And when Terah had spoken this to the king concerning Haran his son, the king ordered Haran to be seized with Abraham. And they brought them both, Abraham and Haran his brother, to cast them into the fire, and all the inhabitants of the land, and the king's servants and princes, and all the women and little ones were there standing that day over them. And the king's servant took Abraham his brother, and they stripped them of all their clothes, excepting their lower garments which were upon them. And they bound their hands and feet with linen cords. And the servants of the king lifted them up and cast them both into the furnace.
Faith tried. Huh? Now you always trip off the scripture talk about how your faith is compared to going through a fiery furnace. Gold is tried in fire. Right? This was literal for Abraham, though. Literal. Come on, brother.
Verse 24. And the Lord loved Abraham, and he had compassion over him. And the Lord came down and delivered Abraham from the fire, and he was not burned.
Sound familiar? Where else is happening? Shadrach, Meshach. Same thing happened to Abraham before he was called about his homeland. For riding with the Most High, standing against false gods, right? But your faith got to be tested and tried. Do you really believe? We see his brother was half-hearted, right? Abraham was fully persuaded, and the Lord delivered.
So those who haven't read that, right? Read Daniel chapter 3. All right, verse 24 again. And the Lord loved Abraham, and he had compassion over him. And the Lord came down and delivered Abraham from the fire, and he was not burned.
Ain't nothing impossible for the Lord for y'all that's thinking. Somebody there thinking, yeah, right, that ain't happening. Please. Everybody don't believe it. To some people, it's just words on paper.
Right.
Ink on paper. Right? But in that hour, you're going to pray your faith is strong and not wavering. Whether you believe it or not, they going to kick their new world order off. The Antichrist will take his seat. You will be persecuted. You're going to have to make a decision on whether you're going to take the mark of the beast or not. Regardless, if you go atheist, the whole room go atheist today. It's still going to happen. And you're still going to be at that point to where I'm either have to stand up for what I believe or sell out to the other side. Either one. Regardless if everybody in the room flipped right now and went off and did their own thing, it's still going to happen. Right? We see all the righteous men in the Bible had to go through some type of trial with their faith. All right, come on, brother.
All right. Verse 25. But all the cords which they bound him were burned, while Abraham remained and walked about in the fire.
He's there walking around. Come on, bro.
Verse 26. And Haran died when they cast him into the fire, and he was burned to ashes. For his heart was not perfect with the Lord.
His mind wasn't perfect with the Lord. He was not fully persuaded. He didn't have full faith in God. You feel me? Bigger the faith, bigger the miracles. Abraham had the big faith, the Lord did a miracle. Brother didn't. He was half-hearted, half-cocked. Lord ain't deal with him. Without faith, you can't please him. But we all got the faith of Abraham, right? We gonna see. Come on, brother.
And those men who cast him into the fire, the flame of the fire spread over them, and they were burned, and 12 men of them died.
Come on.
And Abraham walked in the midst of the fire 3 days and 3 nights.
Wow.
And all the servants of the king saw him walking in the fire. And they came and told the king, saying, Behold, we have seen Abraham walking about in the midst of the fire. And even the Lord's garments which are upon him are not burned. But the
cord that his drawers on, Lord garments. Come on.
But the cord with which he were bound is burned. And when the king heard their words, his heart fainted.
Mind fainted. Come on.
And he would not believe them. So he sent other faithful princes to see this matter. And they went and saw it and told it to the king. And the king rose to go and see it. And he saw Abraham walking to and fro in the midst of the fire. And he saw Haran's body burn. And the king wondered greatly
about this. This goes back to our original point in Romans chapter 4. All this is happening to Abraham before he even circumcised.
That's right.
He ain't even called out his country yet.
Right.
Feel me? The Lord ain't giving him no sons. He ain't had none of that yet. All this is going on before you read Genesis 12 when the Lord called him out of his country. All this was going on before that. Now you see why the Lord called him out.
So think about this. If Abraham is about 50 years old, sure, the question, how old was Abraham when he got circumcised? Who know the answer? Where can we find that? Nope. Genesis 17, but how old was he? 99 years old. Let's look. All right.
49 years later. 49 years later. Come on, bro.
Verse 29.
Hey, don't break one any further. You talking circumcised physically or spiritually circumcised?
I'm talking about physical. He was already spiritually active.
Say, how did you do all that and then circumcised in the mind and heart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was circumcised in the heart.
He was already circumcised spiritually. That's what preserved him in the fire.
As also written in Deuteronomy 10:16.
Come on, let's finish. Verse we at 29.
I mean, verse 29 now.
Let's get it.
Verse 29. And the king ordered Abraham to be taken out from the fire. And his servants approached to take him out, and they could not. For the fire was round about, and the flame ascending toward them from the furnace. Verse 30. And the king's servants fled from him. And the king rebuked them, saying, Make haste and bring Abraham out of the fire, that you shall not die. Verse 31. And the servants of the king again approached to bring Abraham out, and the flames came upon them and burned their faces, so that 8 of them died. And when the king saw that his servants could not approach the fire, lest they should be burned, the king called to Abraham, O servant of the God who is in heaven, go forth from amidst the fire, and come hither before me. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of the king. And he went forth from the fire and came and stood before the king. And when Abraham came out, the king and all his servants saw Abraham coming before the king with his Lord's garments upon him. For they were not burned, but the cord which he was bound was burned. And the king said to Abraham, How is it that thou was not burned in the fire? And Abraham said to the king, The God of heaven and earth, and whom I trust.
And whom I what?
And whom I trust.
I got full faith in him. Come on, brother.
And who has all in his power, he delivered me from the fire into which thou didst cast me. And Haran, the brother of Abraham, was burned to ashes, and they sought for his body, and they found it consumed. Verse Verse 37. And Haran was 82 years old when he died in the fire of Castle. And the king, princes, and inhabitants of the land, seeing that Abraham was delivered from the fire, they came and bowed down to Abraham.
Bow to him, huh? Come on.
Verse 38. And Abraham said to them, do not bow down to me.
See what Abraham did?
Right.
We got brothers up in New York having heathens drop down and kiss boots already. So, come on, brother.
But Abraham said to them, do not bow down to me, but bow down to the God of the world who made you, and serve him, and go in his ways, for it is he who delivered me from out of this fire.
See, very humble with it. Very ain't said, yeah, it's me, dog. It was me because of all me. That's what you do today. Get the camera, call the news. And I am like, look, it's the Most High. When you bow to me, it's the Most High. Y'all need to stop serving these idols. Come on, brother.
And it is he who created the souls and spirits of all men.
No, some men.
All men. And formed man in his mother's womb. And brought him forth into the world. And it is he who will deliver those who trust in him from all pain.
Jeremiah 17:5. Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord. See that? Abraham saying the same thing. Come on, brother.
Verse 39. And this thing seemed very wonderful in the eyes of the king and princes, that Abraham was saved from the fire, and that Haran was burned. And he gave, and the king gave Abraham many presents, and he gave him his two head servants from the king's house. The name of one was Oni, and the name of the other was Eliezer.
Now you know how Eliezer, the one who went and found Isaac's wife for him, got with Abraham. It was given to him as a gift from the king.
Right.
They're one of your servants, man. You're going to need some servants and all that. Come on, brother.
Verse 40. And all the kings, princes, and servants gave Abraham many gifts of silver and gold and pearl. And the king and his princes sent him away. And he went in peace. Verse 41.
You see how Abraham get rich?
Yeah.
Faithfully tried, the Lord set him up. Bah! You good. And you dying. You good. Set him on up. Set him on up. That's my partner right there.
Put him on.
Come on, brother.
41.
Come on.
Verse 41. And Abraham went forth from the king in peace, and many of the king's servants followed him. About 300 men joined him. And Abraham returned on that day and went to his father's house. I'm going to read that again, verse 42 again. And Abraham returned on that day, and he went to his father's house, he and the men that followed him. And Abraham served the Lord, his God, all the days of his life. And he walked in his ways, and he followed his law.
See that? See what Abraham did? The law wasn't around before Moses, silly. Stop that. The laws of God been in the earth. How can Cain be guilty of murder if there was no thou shalt not murder? Don't make sense.
How did Joseph know not to commit adultery?
Right.
Genesis 39 and 9.
Come on, brother.
Verse 43.
Yeah.
And from that day forward, Abraham inclined the hearts of the sons of men to serve the Lord. And at that time, Nahor and Abraham took unto themselves wives, the daughters of their brother Haran, the wife of Nahor, and Milcah was the name of Abraham's wife, was Sarai. And Sarai, wife of Abraham, was barren, and she had no offspring in those days.
All right, scratch that. Let's go to chapter 13. Only 10 verses in 13. And then we're going to get into Genesis 12. So you see the whole timeline of what just happened. Y'all read all that when y'all get a chance. Excellent reading.
It is, though.
Excellent reading. And it put everything in a whole new perspective for you. You'll see what was going on, why Abraham was called about his house. And what happened. You feel me? His faith was tried to destroy his father's gods. They were trying to kill him at his birth, all that. All right, Joshua 13, 1 through 10.
Book of Joshua, chapter 13, verse 1. And Terah took his son Abraham and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and Sarah, his daughter-in-law, the wife of his son Abraham, and all the souls of his household, and went with them from Ur-Kasdim to go to the land of Canaan.
So even Terah had to get about that. Come on.
And when they came as far as the land of Haran, they remained there, for it was exceedingly good land for pasture, and of sufficient extent for those who accompanied them. And the people of the land of Haran saw that Abraham was good and upright with God and men, and that the Lord his God was with him. And some of the people of the land of Haran came and joined Abraham, and he taught them the instruction of the Lord and his ways. And these men remained with Abraham in his house, and they adhered to him.
Adhered to him. Listened to him. Became in subjection to him. Come on, brother.
Verse 3. And Abraham remained in the land 3 years, and at the expiration of 3 years the Lord appeared to Abraham and said to him, I am the Lord who brought thee forth from Ur-Kasdim and delivered thee from the hands of all thine enemies. And now, therefore, if thou wilt hearken to my voice and keep my commandments.
My what?
My commandments.
So with the faith comes the commandments. You can't say I got faith and you don't do what the Lord tells you to do. Right? You still got to keep the charge of the Lord. All right? It's just, do you really believe in what you're doing? All right, come on, bro.
Verse 4 again. And now, therefore, if thou wilt hearken to my voice and keep my commandments, my statutes, and my laws, then will I cause thy enemies to fall before thee.
The Lord said, what, Abraham?
Then will I cause thy enemies to fall before thee. And I will multiply thy seed like the stars of heaven. And I will send my blessing upon all the works of thy hands, and thou shalt lack nothing.
See, the Lord said, you keep my commandments, what's coming for you. Feel me? Him and his seed. Why wouldn't we want that? Why everybody mad at you for trying to be better? Why? Everybody getting mad at your forehead wrinkled up for. Trying to be better? What's wrong with that?
And what we read here, this sounds exactly like what we read about the blessings in Deuteronomy 28.
It says Ur-Kasdim, is that the same thing?
Chaldea is the same thing. Same thing.
Right.
Come on, brother.
Verse 5. Arise now, take thy wife and all belonging to thee, and go to the land of Canaan and remain there. And I will there be unto thee for a God, and I will bless thee. And Abraham rose and took his wife and all belonging to him, and he went to the land of Canaan as the Lord had told him. And Abraham was 50 years old when he went from Haran. Verse 6. And Abraham came to the land of Canaan and dwelt in the midst of the city. And he there pitched his tent among the children of Canaan, inhabitants of the land. Verse 7. And the Lord appeared to Abraham when he came to the land of Canaan, and said to him, This is the land which I give unto thee, and to thy seed after thee forever. And I will make thy seed like the stars of heaven, and I will give unto thy seed for an inheritance all the land which thou seest. And Abraham built an altar in the place where God had spoken to him. And Abraham there called upon the name of the Lord. Verse 9. At the end of 3 years of Abraham's dwelling in the land of Canaan, and that year Noah died, which was the 58th year of the life of Abraham. And all the days that Noah lived were 950 years, and he died. Verse 10. And Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan, he, his wife, and all belonging to him, and all those that accompanied him, together with those that joined him from the people of the land. But Nahor, Abraham's brother, and Terah his father, and Lot the son of Haran, and all belonging to them, dwelt in Haran.
All right, let's jump over to Genesis. Genesis, the 12th chapter. Got to go ahead and get some background information on our forefather Abraham. Read that. Let me get you.
We're going there real quick. We got the definition of faith. It's in the concordance, Greek 4102, pistis, which basically means assurance, belief, believe, faith, fidelity, truthfulness, conviction. So that's what we
Say truthfulness, conviction, huh? Full belief. All right, now we're going to Genesis, the 12th chapter. Again, going over the faith of Abraham, our father, and the many trials that he was put through. You got the faith of Abraham. Understand, everybody in here, faith will be tried. Faith will be tried. Why wouldn't it be? All the righteous men and women in the scripture, faith is tried. And they came out faithful. So this is not a scare tactic, it's more of an encouraging message. Endure to the end and you will cash in.
That's right.
You got to endure though. Ain't nothing new. Ain't nothing new under the sun. They was coming at all your forefathers, they gonna come at you too. But faithful is he that called you. Remember that. Alright, let's get into it. Genesis 12th chapter. Read 1 through 9 for me, brother.
Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, into the land that I will show thee.
So, being that who all been listening, what all been happening since or before Abraham, the Lord told Abraham what we just read. D'Angelo, my Hebrew. No, that Hebrew, no. What all Abraham, just a few of the things our forefather was going through before the Lord right here in Genesis 12 called him out of his home. Come back to you. Who knows? Lex Hebrew. I know that Hebrew.
No, you know.
What was all Abraham, a few of the things Abraham was going through before the Lord called him out of his homeland when we read now in Genesis 12.
He was going to get executed by Nimrod. He was testing on many factors. What else was he doing? He went in his dad's grave, knocked down all the guys. The man his father named Michael, and then he got tested in the flames. He walked in the flames 3 days, 3 nights.
Right. Go ahead, bro. Right. You're going to get answer, bro.
Hey, hold up. How many days was he in prison?
How many days was he in prison?
Yeah.
15.
Nope.
Get it while Mama says it.
And we pick on each other.
Go ahead, brother.
Was that the Gentile nation they were staying in?
Yeah, it was Nimrod and them running. Nimrod was the son of Cush, who was the son of Ham.
But did they make Abraham was a Gentile by staying in the nation?
He came out of that nation.
Came out of it.
Yeah, and then check it out. Trip off this. It was a line of Shem, right? You got Ham, Shem, Japheth, right? Now the Gentile comes into play when you get to going through the 12 tribes and everybody outside of them. You feel me? Israel wasn't on the scene yet. They still had to come through Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then the 12 tribes populate. You feel me? So yeah, those were Gentiles serving false gods. Right? But the true worship of God was preserved from Adam, Enoch, Seth, on down. Shem, Noah, Abraham, right? To the birth of the Israelite nation. Go ahead.
Wasn't Abraham considered a Hebrew after he separated from his...
Yeah, Genesis 14, you speak of. That's Genesis 14:13. Abraham the Hebrew. Right? Go ahead.
Yeah, also answer what the brother said in the back. Also, just remember we just read in the book of Jasher that he went and stayed, I think it was 49 years with his grandfather Noah and Shem. So he was from up under Shem. So he went back and learned from him. So he came from out there. Bloodline. Not from Ham, you know, Ham.
Right.
Yeah, and then through Abraham came the Israelite nation, 12 tribes. You feel me? Jesus Christ. So it's the same bloodline all the way down. That kept the original teaching. All right, let's get to Genesis 12. Let's get into it. So now we know some of the things Abraham was going through right before the Lord called him out. His faith was tried. Now trip off this. All this happened to him and he was still not circumcised. You feel me? But his faith was tried. He was circumcised in heart and spirit. The Lord counted him faithful, called him his friend. Now it's time to get it in. All right, Genesis 12. Let's get it, brother.
Verse 2. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed.
That's the Lord telling him, I got your back.
Yeah.
Whoever got a problem with you, I got a problem with them. Right? Whoever cool with you, I'm cool with them.